That's
Happy
wonderful.
to see you.
Good evening, and I want to welcome everybody to our Tuesday, September 6th council meeting. This is the time you probably want to turn pagers and cell phones to vibrate. I don't know if anybody wears pagers anymore. But I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order. With the first up is Councilwoman Bowers will lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
As we gather, we are reminded that despite our differences, we are linked by our common humanity. May we work together to move our community forward in a spirit of mutual respect and common decency. And in doing so, we showcase what is best about Gahanna, Ohio, and our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou.
Here.
Bowers.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
Padova.
Here.
Renner.
Here.
Schnetzler.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
All right, thank you. Item B, additions or corrections to the agenda. Do we have anything? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to hearing of visitors. Madam Mayor, I believe you have a proclamation.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. President. This is a proclamation that I have done every year. This will be the third year where we have recognized September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. It unfortunately is a month that we have to recognize. I can say that I have had family members, young children who have been diagnosed with cancer. We've certainly met other members of our community who have been dealing with this issue. And tonight we have another Gahanna family. We have Haley, Denise, and Jim L. If you guys like to come forward to recognize them. Just to give you a few statistics, because they're sobering statistics. There are approximately 1 in 285 children in the United States who will be diagnosed with cancer before their 20th birthday, and 46 children per day, or 16,790 children annually, are diagnosed with cancer in the United States every year. And at any given time, there are approximately 40,000 children who are undergoing treatment for cancer. And I actually have a very dear friend from college whose daughter is going through treatment right now, and they're in the battle of their life right now. But this is a success story we have here with Haley. Haley was diagnosed with lymphoblastic leukemia. Did I say that correctly? When she was 4 years old. She went through 2 years of treatment beyond that. Now she's a freshman at Gahanna Lincoln High School with 4 spoiled guinea pigs. And she loves to cook and is looking to start your own cooking class and trying to find a way to do that. So we're going to have a conversation around how we can get you to do that. But she is the success story, and that's because of the doctors and the nurses and the practitioners and the researchers who are dedicated to trying to find a cure to this, quite frankly, insidious disease. But it is my honor to be able to recognize you and your family, Haley, for what you have gone through, the battle you continue to fight. But again, one of our success stories and the courage that you've shown through this. So with that, I would like to present this proclamation to you in honor of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, to congratulate you on your strength and your courage, and to know that you have the city of Gahanna always with you and always behind you. Congratulations. We need one with your mom. Come on. Mom's in here.
Thank you. Next on hearing of visitors, I do have speaker slips, and I just want to clarify a little bit. I want to thank you. We do have a public hearing on the facilities of the moving of City Hall and the police station and the senior center. Those speaker slips I'll use at that time. But this hearing of visitors is just general audience members who want to step forward and actually talk about something that's on their mind. If you're one of those that still wanted to actually speak to council, you will find speaker slips in the rear of the room, or you could talk to our clerk. And there's still a little bit of time, right? Okay, the first member I have is Larry Coble.
Mr. Chairperson, I probably would come under item D on the agenda.
Oh, for the public and for the facilities. Okay, thank you, Mr. Coble. Next is Brenda Hoffman. Ms. Hoffman, per our rules, I think you know them. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council. I'm Brenda Hoffman. My address is 279 High Meadow Drive, Gahanna, Ohio, 43230. I have 2 issues. The first issue I already had a conversation with Mayor Jadwin about, and I understand that the city is going to be very understanding, but we're having problems getting the opt-out folks for the city sidewalk program. As you're aware, we were expecting a mapping and information to opt out February 15th. And, you know, there's been all kinds of things happen, some of them with the contractor, some of them with the pandemic. Actually, the first timeline for the sidewalk program was in 2019. The mayor came in 2020. There was no way fixing everything she was fixing that could have been addressed. Then it was 2021, now it's 2022 for those of us that opt out, the first group of that 219 people. You have 600 some odd coming up next year. Right now, we're going through situations where 9 cubic yards of cement are taking 3 deliveries over a span of 2 to 3 days from Ernst to get it done. They do not have drivers. They do not have quantities. And God forbid you do what I did and order something that stands up to 9,600 PSI. With all the rain, with the labor shortages, I would suggest that the engineering department, the mayor, the administration, and all of you consider pushing our date back to the same date as those who opted in. Because this is really getting to be, and I know that's just kind of kicking the can down the road, and I'm not usually a proponent for that, but you are going to have good weather days after frost line. You are going to have days after October 20th where you can pour and still be above that 50-degree overnight. So I would ask, you know, I know right now the mayor has been really kind of saying, look, just stay in contact with us. Let us know what's going on with you, your situation, your contractor. I'm in a situation where I have to pour almost immediately. I have a husband with 2 health problems, 2 impending surgeries, and they're all coming up within the next week and a half, and I cannot get Papa Bear from the street into the house, not by myself. I mean, I have great neighbors. They've been really helpful. I'm scheduled to see the knee surgeon myself tomorrow. There's a whole bunch of folks in my neighborhood that are opting out. We all went together with one contractor. He's been wonderful. He turned permits in 5 weeks ago. I called Friday. Angie doesn't know where they are. Ferdina doesn't know where they are. He's coming in tomorrow. I have no idea what's happening. I have no idea how long it's going to be to get to inspection. So I think everybody needs to have a kind of a talk about what can we do, you know, because we've been patient. I was ready to pour May 21st of 2021, and I couldn't get any help when the city said that my contractor's levels were bad. You know, for one neighbor, it was okay to lay a level down. When I asked to do it, it was told, why don't you just wait for the city? You know, but everybody's under stress about this. But I think we all need to kind of give each other a hand up. So that's number 1 issue. Number 2, rental registration. There is a very large private equity firm in the United States called Cerberus. They are run under First Key Homes. They were part of the conversation when the rental registration originally came up with Mr. Michael Schnitzer. I talked to this council in the ancient times when it first happened. I'm starting to see a pattern of behaviors with landlords that I have never seen before, quite frankly, in my life. And I am a big proponent of everybody needs a home. Social reintegration, prior convictions, whatever. Everybody needs a place to live. I'm really into housing. But when you cannot be a member of a community, when you cannot behave yourself to a manner that I don't have to pick up the phone and call Gahanna PD at 2:30 in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, 11:20, toddlers in diapers at the street, toddlers in diapers banging on car doors because their sisters are in there smoking. We got all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and I've been looking at this, trying to look at this from an analytical and not a personal approach. Every time I utilize a police officer for maintaining the peace, I have potentially removed that police officer from handling guns at CVS or a holdup at UDF. Police officers are great, and we have great cops. But there has to be something that we can do with these landlords and these owners where we're starting to put that cost back on them, where we take away their rights to lease, when we take away their rights to rent. Because when you start talking to their bottom dime, their bottom line, their bottom dollar, talk to their wallet about what this is costing us, right now what it's costing in my community is exorbitant. Every neighbor on the street is in an uproar about lawns not being mowed, loud noises, pot smoking, just crazy stuff. So I would ask you to go back through and consider for the rest of us what you can do to kind of ameliorate some of that by imposing penalties, fines, or a loss of licensure back to the actual property owners. On any given day, you can drive through and you know the renters that are bad. At the same time, you've got rentals that are owned by the people that are living next door in a double. Not one time in 15 years has that landowner had to call the cops. Not one time. I know one lady, she's been doing this a long time. The yard is immaculate. Why should she suffer a penalty and pay these big fees for rental registration because she's considered a business? Well, how come Cerberus isn't considered a business? So we need to get back to the more rentals you have, the more money you're going to pay. And none of this sliding scale stuff because there's 151 apartments and they can't afford to pay $75 each for 2 years. It's wrong. It's hurting our community. Thank you very much for your consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Ryan Spart? I'm sorry, I can't see this. Spat? Okay. I apologize.
That's all right.
Part of
My
it's
handwriting
crossed out.
isn't great. I'm going to apologize for my phone. I'm not a gifted public speaker, so I'm going to be reading.
That's
it,
fine, but just state your name and address first for the record.
Ryan Spack, 211 Carlin Court East. Several weeks ago, a representative from the Major Taylor Bicycle Club stood here and spoke about road safety. Immediately after, a representative from the Bicycle and Trails Advisory Committee spoke about road safety. During council's comments, several of you chose to use your time to both express support for these two speakers and to highlight that a resolution had been passed to declare August Safer Roads and Share the Street Month. At the recent Sidewalk Maintenance Town Hall, it was emphasized how often the city hears about residents wanting Gahanna to be more walkable, a view that was also a near unanimous response to the public input for the updated land use plan 3 years ago. And so I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect between what I hear in this chamber and the reality of what I experience in the city. In the Sidewalk Town Hall, I was a bit surprised to learn that several years ago, we had already had action taken against us by FHWA due to ADA compliance complaints because just walking around my neighborhood and making no special effort to look for problems, I can find several instances of new construction within the past 2 years that is still not ADA compliant. I think it's important to mention here that the standard we currently aren't meeting is the lowest bar, bare minimum legal requirements for accessibility and barely scrapes the surface of what walkability is, which is what the community is asking for. Walkability is a holistic approach to how you use public space and includes concepts of safety, comfort, usefulness, and attractiveness. It is entirely possible to have a fully compliant section of sidewalk that is functionally useless, and it is possible to have a fully compliant curb ramp that is at an intersection that is neither safe nor comfortable to cross. Our sidewalk maintenance plan is an absolutely critical piece in improving our city, but it's not enough. No matter how well maintained our sidewalks are, there are other actions taken or tolerated by the city which result in our sidewalks being unusable for weeks or months each year. For example, in winter, when the snow is plowed onto the curb ramp, the sidewalk network is broken. When people are allowed to consistently park their cars across the sidewalk network is broken. We focus a lot on the costs of maintenance, but changing practices like these would cost nothing and would contribute to safer streets. At the end of the day, I can only measure our success in living up to our words here by looking at the actions we take. And so when I see the car-centric design of our proposed new city hall, or when I hear repeatedly and emphatically how a new parking structure will be built or will be a priority at the Creekside Redevelopment Town Hall, as if that's the best use of our limited public space, it makes me think that for all of the acknowledgments of residents' wishes, walkability still just is not a priority. These are projects that will shape and define Gahanna for decades, and I sincerely hope that further discussions give that due consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I don't have any more speaker slips. All right. Thank you. And I just wanted to actually finally say, and I should have said this at the beginning, but we are joined by Representative Mary Lightbody in the back. She doesn't have anything formally to say, but she's always wanting to listen to you, so make sure you stop by her. The next item that we have on our agenda is the public hearing. Per our rules, before I open the public hearing, I'd like to ask the administration if you guys had any points that you wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We have been engaged in detailed discussions about facilities for the last 9 months, through public workshops, through multiple public discussions with council and with residents, and with the scheduling of tonight, our third public hearing. Those discussions with residents have not just happened here within council chambers, but we have met with community organizations, we've met with senior center members, we've met with residents through the course of events within the community, as well as just simply walking the streets and encountering residents through conversation. We have discussed at length the condition of our city facilities, most notably our police headquarters. And the issue that is before council tonight has arisen because we have two issues. First of all, we have a problem that needs to be solved. The immediate problem is the condition of the building right across the parking lot. That is the condition of our police headquarters. It's a building that is, as we have said, functionally obsolete to the operations of the police department for today, but it frankly is just a building that is deteriorating. We also have the building that we are currently sitting in with limitations that really hamper our ability to effectively deliver services or hamper our ability to deliver services to our residents in the most effective way possible. The second problem that we have is finding a way to fix that first problem in a way that does not require us to increase taxes to our residents. The opportunity that we have identified at 825 Tech Center Drive is a solution to both of those problems. It provides us with a facility that will address an immediate problem with our police headquarters, and it does so in the most cost-effective way possible for our residents. There's no better time than now to pursue this project. We have the opportunity to purchase 825 Tech Center Drive for less than nearly $2 million, and it was purchased in 2018 by its current owner. And we have that opportunity because of something called COVID. That building is sitting vacant as a result of the pandemic and the results and implications that arose following that pandemic when workers decided to work from home. As a local government, we don't have that option. We have to be here. Our residents expect us to be in this building when they come in here every day. So we have that opportunity at 825 Tech Center Drive because of what's happened globally in the last 2 years. We also don't have very much available land in Gahanna. This is the pot talking to the kettle right now. We don't have available land that would meet the needs that we would have in order to either build a new police headquarters, to build a new city hall. The land and the opportunity that we would need to have just simply does not exist within this city. And even if that land was available, we have done the cost estimates as to what that would look like. And to not only to buy the land in order to build a new police headquarters or to renovate City Hall or to build a new City Hall, we'd have to buy the land and then build new construction, which would be substantially more than what we're looking at in terms of this 825 Tech Center Drive property. I could continue, but we've been discussing this again for 9 months. Mr. Schultz is here. He's available to answer any additional questions that this council may have for you tonight, but he's pretty sure you're tired of hearing from him, although I think he was talking about reciting numbers in his sleep last night. But Mr. Schultz, I will ask you if you have anything further to add. All right. So with that, Mr. Renner, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now open the public hearing. Yes, sir. Did you have a quick question?
I filled out the slip, but I didn't put the public thing up there. I wanted to make a comment about where I live at before she started talking.
So you still want to be under public, just speaking about not the facility, but something
I
else?
meant to put two things on the sheet. One about what the mayor just talked about.
Okay.
And the other was where I live at.
Okay.
I have to put that on there on the public thing.
Well, great. Sir, please go ahead and step forward before, so just to make it clear, you're going to speak not about the facility,
Correct.
but, okay, and then I'll call you up again for that.
Okay, my name is Jim Heisel. I live at 349 Colwell Court. Okay, I have called here, I don't know how many times in the past year and a half, because what happened was Drive turns into court. The city did half of our street repaving and stuff, and they haven't finished the other half. And we've been going through this for about 2 years now, where they're coming in patching hose. And then when I talk to somebody here, every time I talk to somebody different, they always say, "You're not on the list." And I'm totally confused. I don't know how you can go halfway down the street, tear it up, repave it, and then where we live at, going back into court, it's still not done. And I can't get any answers, and it's not done. And then when somebody gets on the phone, they say, "Well, you're not on the list." I don't know how you go halfway down the street, and I can just go right over here down this street, and what they did on the street that digs into the library, that street is almost 3 times as where we live at. And I'm just totally confused about the repavement that wasn't finished, and it doesn't look like it's going to get finished. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can you restate your last name again? I am so sorry, I did not get it.
Hisle, H-I-S-L-E, Jim is the first name.
All right. And Jim, we will get somebody actually to you from the mayor.
Can I ask, I didn't catch your address, sir?
349 Codwell Court.
Coldwell, okay, thank you.
And then, like I said, they did drive, turns into court. They only went down to Millside, and then they stopped. And then it's been like that for almost a year and a half now, and it's not done. But every time we call, they say we're not on the list, but they come out and patch it. So I'm just totally confused. I don't know how that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, public hearing. This is again the public hearing for the facilities. I'm now going to open it. And before I ask speakers to come up, I just want you to know what the rules are per council rules, Article 9 of our rules, 9.11, that proponents will be allowed 7 minutes, opponents will be allowed 10 minutes, and then 3 minutes for rebuttal by the proponents. I would ask that we do have a number of speaker slips. So the first I'm going to be asking for, obviously, are the proponents. One of the things that I'm asking for people who have unique cases for us to consider. I don't think everybody on council wants to hear the same thing over and over and over, so please listen carefully, and if you do have something to add, definitely come forward and let us know. So the first, I am asking for proponents of facilities for the future. Do I have proponents? That means 4. Yes, ma'am. You are, see, none of these are labeled as such. Mr. McClurg, you're a proponent? Yes. Okay, why don't you go first and. There it is. Thank you. Yes, and again, just like we do with the other, you state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Tim McClurg. I live at 935 Leaf Lock Court. I'm a proponent of this. I'm actually probably wanting to spend more money. I think it's a great idea. I kind of wish the AEP building that was available, because it has a sign there that you could actually say City Hall. I think your big concern is going to try and point people to where City Hall and the police department is. Similar to the survey we had where nobody knew where downtown was, because we don't have a sign still that tells you where downtown is. But I think it's a big need. I've been in the police station by taking tours with my son in high school and elementary school where we've gone through. We've seen the jails. It was very eye-opening, the cement bed that you get to lay on. But I think, and I've been down to the gun range and smelled all the lead that's down there. So I think, probably ventilation would be much needed in the new one. So I'm a big proponent of that. But I also think you have an opportunity here to do some other things. I also worked with the baseball teams where we were out at Friendship Park in some of the facility buildings there. And I know that they're pretty run down, at least they've been run down. And I think you ought to take the opportunity to move that up to Central Park, because you're going to already have City Hall pretty close to there. Move that up there, pave over those buildings to add more parking to Friendship Park, which is in sad need of more parking. You have a huge park, but you have no parking. And then the other thing you could do is, it's a terrible way to get out of Friendship Park is by the Wendy's. Everybody wants to turn left there, it screws it all up, but you've got a back entrance that the facility people use that you could make a one-way exit, have them come out on Lincoln Circle, go around, come to a nice light, and make a left turn without any problems. So I think it's an opportunity to move those facilities also up there. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was a walking bridge from Friendship Park. Friendship Park is a gem of a park that we have downtown, but it's isolated because there's only one way to get in, one way to get out, and there's only one way to get from there over to any other part of the city. You've got to go across the bridge. And if we had a nice walking bridge, it doesn't have to be a fancy cement thing, it could be a, suspension bridge that, looks like it fits in over top of Big Walnut, going from the end of Friendship Park over to those walking paths that we've put in. I think that would open it up for a tremendous amount of foot traffic there. You could make it wide enough so you could have wheelchairs or scooters or mobile devices that people, are motorized wheelchairs and things like that. So I think that's an opportunity also you can do. I will tell you, I do love the fact that you guys put out signs around all the streets and around all the things that you do with issue 12. It's nice to see that. I am curious how much money's left in issue 12, because we have been doing a lot of roads. That might be something to let people know about, because eventually we're gonna run out of that money, but we are improving a lot of the roads that we have around here. One other thing about the sidewalk. I took care of my own sidewalks by calling A1 Leveling to come out, pump up. It was like $50 per sidewalk square to do it. I don't know what the options are for these folks to do their sidewalks. Do they have to tear them out and replace them completely? Can they just level them? Can they get them patched? Could the city make a deal with the concrete company that's over there on Hamilton Road to say, give all our residents a deal because we're gonna buy a crap load of concrete to fix our sidewalks? That might be an opportunity for the city to help, and I know you're giving them free loans or interest-free loans and things like that, I read that, but that might just be another partnership. Plus the city engineering department could help out by helping these folks who probably are mostly elderly. Having to deal with a contractor is a very frightening idea to do, especially if you're 70, 75, 80 years old and you're, trying to figure out, am I getting the right price, the right deal for this? Should it be $2,000? Should it be $200? So I'm just thinking, what some of our residents probably might be looking for. Other than that, thank you for your time, and I do think it's a great idea to buy the building and move there. So good luck on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Janine Cochran?
Jeannie Gochin. Yeah.
Greetings, council members and city staff members. My name is Dr. Jean Gukchen. I reside in Gahanna at 474 Whitley Drive. I and my family have lived here since 1988. I'm the president and CEO of a small business that I founded and located in Gahanna in 1994. I am also currently a member of the Gahanna Area Chamber of Commerce Board. I appreciate this opportunity to provide input to council regarding the proposed facilities plan to move City Hall, Police Headquarters, and the Senior Center to 825 Tech Center Drive. Simply stated, I wholeheartedly support this plan. As a resident who has utilized the City Hall offices and as a business that formerly provided services to the city, I have personally seen almost every office and building that the city utilizes. While there have been numerous objective studies completed over the course of many years that document the large disparity between the facility's current space and the amount of space actually required to properly execute the city's many operations, a visitor to any of the city buildings and offices can readily see the poor conditions via simple observation. I can attest to the woefully inadequate space that staff have had to tolerate and accommodate in order to perform their duties, as well as visitors trying to accomplish a task here or at any of the buildings. Staff have managed to perform their jobs admirably all these years despite a suboptimal working space. However, the current space situation does limit some of their capabilities and also prohibits expanding and improving services to adequately meet the needs of our growing community. That Gahanna needs better city facilities is indisputable. Beyond the inadequate space, the current facilities leave much to be desired in terms of their appearance, organization, accessibility, and services able to be provided. They leave an underwhelming and possibly negative perception of our city. Of the options available to achieve this goal, the option of moving to an existing suitable building or buildings makes most sense given the substantial cost and time savings. No one can deny that utilizing an existing building, even with the cost of renovations, is clearly more cost-effective than building new, as is the reduction in time in which the entire process and moving to the new offices can be completed. Also important is the fact that the financing of this purchase and renovations is contained within current financial resources, and residents would not be subject to additional taxes to fund it. The timely availability of the building at 825 Tech Center Drive is a singular opportunity that I'm glad our city recognized and acted upon. Besides its improved functionality, the building is beautiful and impressive and will present a professional, positive impression to residents, businesses, and visitors. It's big enough to accommodate the city's current and future facility needs for 3 major operations: City Hall, Police Headquarters, and the Senior Center, and possibly more for decades to come. Our community will be provided with improved and expanded services and accessibility as a result. I know concerns have been expressed, one of which I believe is regarding the location of this new facility. I submit the location is better and more accessible to the community than the current buildings. It's barely 1.5 miles from the current City Hall and Police Headquarters location and from the I-270 exit entrance ramps on Hamilton. The section of Tech Center Drive from South Hamilton Road near the airport to Morrison Road connects directly to the new facilities. And with the significant business and residential development occurring there, it's rapidly becoming a major entryway to Gahanna. Moving city facilities to the existing 825 Tech Center Drive building is a wise, strategic, forward-thinking use of Gahanna funds that will benefit the entire community. Again, I fully support this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the other speaker slips that I have, I don't have any cognition if you're a pro or opponent, so I'm just going to read your name, and I'm looking for right now for proponents. Mr. Larry Coble?
Opponent.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jim Hissel?
I was going to speak, but I'm letting Mr. Coble.
Okay, thank you, sir. Miss Kathy Schaefer? Are you? Do you feel more like your proponent, or do you feel like? Okay, I'll save you for the next pile. Mr. Jim Hissel. Oh, here you are. Mr. Jerry Lang.
I'll wait.
I'm sorry?
I'll wait.
You wait?
Yeah.
So, okay, your opponent? Okay, well, I tell you what, then, without much further ado, we are actually to that section. So, Mr. Larry Coble.
Mr. President, council members, mayor, I come to oppose the $8.5 million budget item to move the city buildings to Tech Center. I think, even though I heard the mayor, and I was impressed with your list of asking for involvement in this, I never heard about any of that opportunity. You said you were out walking streets. You didn't walk Mr. Heisel's street or mine. I live on Coldwell Court, by the way, 384 Coldwell Court. And so this is my first opportunity to speak to this. I think this whole idea breaks trust with the voters and the taxpayers of Gahanna. If we have $8.5 million, not including cost overruns and equipment and furnishing and all that, if we have that money now, where did it come from? It came from taxpayers who never were made aware that this might be an item, even though I understand this is probably an opportunity that has popped up in the last year or so, but taxpayers never had the suggestion that we were going to move the buildings. It will come up, the next tax issue. I'll bring it up. I don't know if the $8.5 million calculates cost overrun, which is almost certainly a part of any project, especially a project this big. You know there's going to be cost overrun. What do they say? It costs twice as much and takes twice as long when you construct something. And so I haven't heard anything about the covering cost overruns. The new buildings will have new communication systems and new computer networks. That's going to be expensive. I can't wait to see how the transfer from the old to the new goes over the 18 months after that's installed. If we're not going to have new communication and computer networks, shame on us. We should. I haven't heard a word about what will happen to this real estate. I kind of have a feeling eventually it's all going to be bulldozed and high school kids will park on this territory. What are we going to do with these existing buildings? I haven't read or heard anything about that. If we have $8.5 million not covering equipment and cost overruns and all of that, if we have $8.5 million that does not put a burden on the taxpayer, here's what I think we need to do. First of all, we need to hire more receptionists at City Hall to answer telephones. 9 out of 10 times when I call a city department, I'm asked to leave a message. Sometimes there's a prompt reply, as Mr. Van Meter did. I called and left a message this morning, and I think within 15 or 20 minutes he got back to me. That's not always the case. But the point is, you don't get a live human being. The mayor suggested that because we have a government administration, people can't work from home. Where are they working that they can't answer the phone? So we could hire, if $8.5 million, probably get a couple more receptionists in here. So much of the business takes place through emails and texting and that sort of thing. I don't do that. I think a lot of people, as they get older, or your older generation, that's not how we communicate. We call people, or we walk into their office and we talk to them. And so having text and emails, that's really subtle ageism. You're aging out those of us who don't use that type of communication. Maybe you think in your mind, well, he's an old fogey and he's going to die pretty soon and we want to, but we don't do that now, okay? There's Mr. Heisel and I live on Coldwell Court, and I totally agree with what he said. They refinished Coldwell Drive, and when it dog-legged into Coldwell Court, there's a line in the street, and they didn't come on. But there's a physically challenged person on Coldwell Court that has called City Hall, I just heard this today, several times and never gotten a response back. Coldwell Court itself is in crumbling conditions. And if we have $8.5 million that doesn't put a strain on the taxpayer, let's do more streets. You can do my street. I will say, and I want to compliment, that after about 2.5 years of complaining about a large and growing pothole in the court, the city came out a couple months ago, and that crew was magnificent, and they did a good job of patching the pothole. But the whole street is evolving into potholes. If we got $8.5 million, let's do something about that. Again, I want to say that on a personal note, I also, as the doctor, have lived in Gahanna since 1988. And when we moved in, there was what was called a good neighbor fence, a split rail fence around the Academy Park area and what would become, back in those days, it was still owned by Columbus Academy. But there was a good neighbor fence that delineated between private property and public property. That was in 1988. It's not weathered well. And I have called the city several times to say, hey, can you bring me 11 or 12 split rails, dump them in my yard, I'll put them in. I like to put them in. And the city has told me several times, no, we don't do that anymore. If we got $8.5 million, why can't we come up with some split rails? The city has already spent tens of thousands of dollars on appraisals and estimates and analysis on the building. In fact, when I read about it in the paper, I was impressed. I mean, I think you have covered every base on this. Any question that would come up, you say, no, we have a study, we have an analysis, we have a dollar figure. But that money's already spent. And it's spent because you know it's going to happen. The train is on the track and it's going to run over us. These public hearings that are held, and as I understand it, and maybe someone will correct me, Mr. President, you've had 2 previous hearings and nobody showed up? So
That's about correct.
I'm it. As of right now, there may be some other people, but I'm in opposition to this. You are holding this public hearing, the third, to cover your obligatory necessity to say, oh no, we involved the citizens, we involved the voters, we involved the taxpayer. We let all this hang out and heard from the people. Well, you're probably going to hear maybe from 5 or 6 people. $8.5 million divided by 5 or 6 people. I don't know how that works out, but I'm opposed to this. When I look at this chamber, it's nice. Now you say, well, yeah, but if you go down and look at, no, I have been in City Hall. I've been to Recreation. I've been to Water. I've been over in the police department. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong. And there's certainly nothing wrong with our existing facilities that $8.5 million could not spruce up. We don't need to move. We don't need to spend this money. I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I hope, well, I know the train is on the track, but I just wanted to say my piece. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Schaefer, would you like to go?
name is Kathy Schaefer Fletcher. I live at 785 North Hamilton Road. I grew up in this town. I am representing multiple people that could not be here, who did not hear about this until the last minute. People are concerned about how this is going to affect taxes, thanks to Marissa and Kaden Lee and Jeremy. I understand a little bit more. But once these funds move, we use them, how many levies are we going to have to finish the project? What's the total cost of the project? I understand about the police department, okay? I do understand both sides of the subject, but people are concerned about the taxes on this. They really are, and how it's going to affect, because people are struggling right now with the economy as it is. I mean, what's the overall price?
Are you looking for an answer? Or
Yeah,
you,
I'm looking for
so
an answer.
We're during the oppositional part of the public hearing, but
I mean, I know a
to
lot
cut
of
to
people.
the chase, there are no new taxes, okay? So,
Okay.
but there's a whole plethora of information that we'll get to about this, so.
Because that's the main concern that everybody I've talked to, that asked me to come in and represent them, they're worried about being overly taxed on this.
Understood.
You know, and I understand about the facilities because I grew up here. I watched these buildings be built. I mean, I've seen the town go from 1,000 people to what it is today. And yes, at some point, you're going to have to expand. You're going to have to move. You're going to have to do whatever. I mean, I don't know all the concerns with the police department, but I heard that was the main concern because they've outgrown the building. And our safety of our community is priority. So those are the main concerns that I wanted to address because that's the things that have been brought to me. Okay?
Hope you'll stick around in the rebuttal period, and maybe you'll hear some of the other facts.
Okay.
But- Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Mr. Jerry Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of council, mayor, my name is Jerry Lang. I live at 610 Clark State Road, Gahanna, Ohio. I have lived here all my life, 70-plus years. Proud to be a Gahanna resident sometimes, and I'm not sure if this is one of them or not. Just several comments and questions. I guess I'm not in favor of this at this time. I'm not saying the facilities aren't needed. I've talked with a couple police officers when I take my granddaughter to High Point Elementary, and some others that I've run into, not because I did anything wrong. And they said that the police station is definitely outdated, mold problems, so on and so forth. I wouldn't want to work in a facility like that, and I don't expect my officers that support and protect this city to work in a position, in a facility like that. However, this building, I'm not sure when it was renovated, but it seems like it was only 12 or 15 years ago. I don't think we've got the bang for that buck yet. And I think this building is still very usable. So my big question is, what are the citizens going to benefit, or how are the citizens going to benefit by moving? To me, City Hall should be a focal point of the city. Moving it to a business park, to me, is not a focal point. And I'm not sure how convenient it's going to be for some people to find it. There was a comment about signage. People don't even know where downtown Gahanna is. How are they going to find this building? Along the senior citizen, my mother, 93 years old, visits that senior center. Ask her, Mom, is it busy? Is it crowded? Is it overcrowded? Nope. They don't provide the facilities or the activities that they did before COVID. It's hardly ever used, she says, or underused. So I'm not sure it's that important to move the senior center either. But like I said, the police station, yes. Find a new building. I'm not sure it's that important that the police station and City Hall and the senior center all have to be united under one roof. Excuse my, I gotta check my notes. I don't want to miss something. And as far as communications, there's very few people, I think, that take the dispatch anymore. And if they do take it, very seldom is there anything in there, in the local part that comes on Thursday, about what's happening at City Hall during council meetings. There's no reporter here to put an article in the paper about this is what happened at the last council meeting. I stumbled across information about this meeting just the other night and was shocked to hear that there was 2 other public hearings that I had no idea happened. My wife and I have questioned the water bill. We used to pay it quarterly, now it's monthly. Can't figure out why you want to spend more money mailing out a bill every month when what was wrong with the quarterly. If you want steady income, divide the city up into 4 different sections and bill a different section every quarter, and then you still have money coming in on a monthly basis. But what a great way to communicate with the public, with the citizens. Put a little newsletter in with that water bill. Hey, this is what's happened. We're talking about moving City Hall. Pros and cons, here's the next public meeting. Activities that go on. A great way to communicate. There's no newsletter other than the one that comes out at the beginning of the year or maybe twice a year about different things. But it doesn't talk about things that are happening here in this chamber. So I think you're missing the opportunity to involve the citizens, and don't get me started on the school board and that terrible situation of not involving, asking people to vote for a levy without telling them how they're going to spend the money. So at least you have told us that it's going to be $8.5 million and this is what it's going to cost, but I'm not sure. I mean, I'm retired from construction, and in this economy, in this area, I think you're going to find that, like the other gentleman said, your $8.5 million isn't going to get it. The labor market for construction is in high demand, and you're not going to compete with Intel and Google and all the other big companies for qualified, and let me underline that, qualified contractors to renovate your building if you decide to go that route. You might be better off to postpone this. Yeah, that building can go by the wayside, but at least your development department could find a new tenant and you could have income coming from it again instead of an empty building. And my last point is, if you can afford the $8.5 million, but yet you can't afford to put a human being to monitor people that dump waste at the yard waste, the old yard waste dump. It was a very good service that people took advantage of, but evidently there was a few that ruined it for all of us. And Mayor, I called your office twice and have yet to this day to get a phone call back from you so we could talk about that. I have senior neighbors that when a tree limb blows down and they can't get out there in their wheelchair to do anything with it, my dad taught me, help your neighbor. Pay it forward. I clean their yards up. I haul the stuff down to the waste yard as a good neighbor. I don't charge them anything. It's what I feel is my responsibility to my neighbors to help a friend, help a neighbor. Does the yard waste dump have to be open every day? No. I dumped down there, and a guy from Parks and Rec said, "Sir, you're not allowed to dump here anymore." I said, "Well, I guess you're a little too late because I'm dumping. I already had my truck full." If I was to bag my yard waste, local waste would spend 5-10 minutes blocking traffic on Clark State Road picking it up. I'm sure they'd rather pick up the big dumpster at the city hall, at the city complex, than spend 10 or 15 minutes emptying 30 trash cans or picking up 100 yard waste bags that I would have to sit out. Not only with mine, but some of my neighbors. So my proposal was, if you ever called me, was going to be, what's wrong with 4 hours on a Tuesday, couple hours on a Friday, and then again 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday morning? How many people work and could never get, like I used to, luckily I'm retired, I had a hard time getting to that yard waste dump by 3:30 to dump my waste, and it was never open on Saturday and Sunday. So provide a service that used to be here. If you're going to move, which you probably will, but I expect the yard waste dump to reopen somehow. You took away a service, you raised our taxes, well, for the people that work here or live here, I guess, because of the 2%, 2.5% credit, but then you cut a service, and totally upset me. So thank you for your time, and I'm still waiting for a phone call, Ms. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jim Hissel, did you want to speak?
I wanted to, but they said it all.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Mr. Max Orsley.
Hello, my name is Max Orsley. I reside at 691 Vivian Court. My opposition is grounded in not the money, but the location. The current senior center and city hall feel like they're next to the community. They feel like places you can travel to on foot, places you don't need something to get to. With its location on Tech Center Drive, it's like basically at the opposite corner from all of our communities at the edge of Gahanna. So the infrastructure is not really there in the same way that it is here, where we have sidewalks on both sides. Hamilton's kind of a busy road, but not nearly as much as going past the freeway or going down that connecting road. I can't remember the name. So, no, begins with an Morrison. Thank you. So that's my opposition. If you guys need it, I would be in support of it, but with supporting infrastructure so the community can get to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan Spack.
Brian Spack, 211 Carlin Court East. So I'm pretty much just going to echo his comments there. I guess I had two concerns. I guess first of all, I would say I'm not going to pretend to understand all the economics of what's going on here, but my understanding is the economics are pretty good, and I think the city employees and police officers deserve better facilities, so I'm not necessarily against that. But what I would say is I have two large concerns, or maybe not large concerns, just two concerns. First of all, we redid our land use plan 2 or 3 years ago, and we had several principles to be followed in there, namely fronting the street, putting parking lots in the back, and this building does not exemplify that. And in fact, I think you're going to be hard-pressed to find any city property that really exemplifies that, even though we're going to ask developers to do that, and even though that is what modern cities should really look like. So we're really not practicing what we preach there, and I think that's a challenge for this location. Secondly, you are moving City Hall from one of the economic corridors of the city to basically just a corner of the city that's pretty inaccessible by people who choose not to have a car or are not able to travel by car. I don't know how comfortable any of you would be bicycling down Hamilton Road, but I think I can just leave that as a rhetorical question there. And with all due respect to one of the previous speakers who said this was an accessible location, if our idea of accessibility is getting to an airport or a highway and not driving through our community, I think we really need to question what City Hall is supposed to serve, what purpose and what people it's supposed to serve. It's not just the quickest way to get out of town, it's accessibility. I guess my challenge for you guys would be is if this really is an economic benefit, and if we really are going to save these millions and millions of dollars, commit to using those funds to invest in this infrastructure, modernize our city, and make us competitive with Dublin and Hilliard and Worthington and Westerville and the other cities that are making these investments. Commit to that money, put it as part of the deal, put it in writing that this savings will go towards a separated bike lane on Hamilton between the old City Hall location and the new City Hall location, something along those lines. And I think that'll about wrap it up for me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is all the speaker slips I have. I definitely wanted to make sure that the public had an opportunity to weigh in on opposition. So this is the last call. Are there any more opposition comments on this? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to actually move back to the rebuttal. Madam Mayor, how would you like to handle the rebuttal with the information? Because I think we've heard consistently that communication to our residents is one of the keys.
Yes, and I do appreciate everybody's comments today for that. I know I'm going to defer to Mr. Schultz as well in responding to some of the other questions or comments that were made tonight. But with regard to the communications to the community, I know that over the past several months, and let's keep in mind that this opportunity did not even develop until I think we drove past the building in March, we toured it in late April. It's really only been over the last 3 to 4 months that we've really been dealing with this issue and exploring it and identifying it. There have been 3 newspaper articles on it. We've done a public town hall that was held here in Chambers. It's up on the YouTube channel. We've had at least 6 council discussions, all available on YouTube as well. We have focused it in monthly city newsletters that go out. So if you don't receive the monthly city newsletter, I encourage you to sign up for that. Happy to talk with you afterward about how you can get that and receive that. But there were references to the upcoming public hearings in the city newsletter as well that went out. We also had social media posts. It's difficult. It's very difficult to try to identify all of the different ways to connect with residents between websites and emails and social media and newspaper print and short of knocking door to door, which is not feasible in a community with 15,000 plus households. It's very difficult to identify how every resident wants to be communicated with. At the same time, I heard people referencing that they read newspaper articles and they read about this, and that was why they showed up here tonight. So we are always open to identifying other opportunities and other ways to communicate with the residents. I think that we did our very best to try to hit every possible realm that we had within the short window that we had to do it in. And I know we do use the water bill inserts at times to send information. However, that did not work in this case because those are actually planned months in advance and they have to go to the printer months in advance. As I mentioned, this opportunity did not even come to fruition until like late April, early May. I think it was sometime in May. And by that time, the water bill inserts had already gone to print. So we could not have included that. But we do tend to try to use those as much as we can to share information. So I know it could be frustrating because, as I think as Mr. Goebel said, some of the older community doesn't necessarily use emails or text messages or social media that way. So it is a challenge to try, again, to reach every resident in every modem through which they want to receive information. We do our best to make sure that we are covering that. But I do appreciate everybody showing up here tonight for the commentary. Mr. Schultz, I'm going to turn the rest over to you.
Yeah, so, and I apologize for my back to the audience here, but just in brief summary, and I do have some notes on some of the things that were talked about by the various different speakers. But I think one of the trends that I heard, whether it was an opponent or a proponent to the project, is that there are city facility needs that we have, and namely in the police department, right? So we've studied this police department since 2006, and the latest report from 2021 identifies the fact that it needs to be over 300 times bigger than it currently is in order to meet modern policing efforts that the city of Gahanna has. Okay, so that is the need, as the mayor said in the opening of the public hearing. That's the need that was established way back at the impetus of this project when we started meeting with City Council and having the 4 workshops that were conducted over at the Senior Center in the month of January. As we've gone through this process, we have regularly engaged not just with council at these meetings, but we've held town halls, we've had meetings at different community organizations with the seniors as an example. And we were received, quite frankly, very well by the seniors, where we didn't honestly know what type of room we were going to walk into, but there was a room full of about 40 to 50 different seniors that we met with, all members of the Senior Center, and they basically had indicated, and one of the challenges that the Senior Center has is the fact that they can't provide certain programming because of the facility and the lack of sufficient space that's frankly designed as a senior center and not as a former library building, right? So some of the things that we've heard as we've gone to a variety of different places and had these conversations, there's really a few main questions that we've heard. The biggest question we've heard is how is this project going to be paid for? This project will be paid for, as the mayor has regularly stated before this council and other presentations, that this project will be paid for with issue $12. One of the things that was stated earlier by one of the speakers, maybe 2 of the speakers, issue $12 do not run out. That is an annual capture, if you would, and it is from now until in perpetuity, unless voted on for some other reason at that particular point. So that is a dedicated pot of funding that is going to go towards not just facilities, but it goes towards road projects, street projects, and any other capital investment that the city has to make, which is an important note to make, right? We have a pot of money that comes in from those issue $12, and that pot of money then gets allocated over the various other capital projects that the city has that become a priority, and that's how projects like this are funded. This project will, as the mayor has stated on numerous occasions, this project will not go back to the taxpayer for an additional levy. The second biggest question that we ended up hearing was what happens to this particular piece of property? I'm going to start by saying that is a question that doesn't need answered tonight, because that is a 18 to 24 month question that can be answered. Okay, right now, we need to know what the will of council is as to whether or not we may be moving off of this property or not, and therefore then we can determine what goes on this particular property. And I would dare say that much more conversation is had around what happens on this particular property at a future point in time. We have worked regularly with the school district on this particular property, and we've even investigated as part of this project other vacant office space buildings throughout the city of Gahanna. We visited no short of 6 other buildings, including Clark Hall on 2 occasions, as to whether or not City Hall and/or Police Department could fit there. And the biggest problem and challenge we have with those other vacant facilities is the police department, as the primary example here, just can't go into any building. This does go towards the last speaker's comment about how that particular facility is arranged. And from a public safety standpoint, that particular facility is arranged perfectly because it does not sit on the street like our existing police department does, which creates certain safety concerns for the facility itself. You want your police department off of the road this way. Nefarious characters that may want to do things on the road frontage, they don't have that opportunity. Sure, they could drive into a parking lot, but you have a standoff distance that the chief has talked about regularly. I'm just looking at my notes here as far as a couple of the other things. And again, I think the biggest strain that we heard, or strain of comments, was how is this project going to be funded? And the citizen benefit, right? So I think what we have with this particular project is the ability to modernize the way in which we conduct business, not just from a police standpoint, but the way in which City Hall operates. Again, not just in this building will not be big enough for us for decades to come, whereas that building at 825 Tech Center Drive is really a center at this particular point in time that meets our needs and our future projected needs, again, for a significant point in time into the future, which is a very big point, that we're not solving a problem for 5 years here or 6 years or 7 years. We're solving a problem, we feel, for decades to come, 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future, because of the design of that particular facility and its unique character for us to address the many needs that we have, not just from a police standpoint, but from a City Hall standpoint, and then ultimately a senior center standpoint as well. So I think, as I've said, the majority of the talks that I've given on this particular subject, I'll be quiet now and answer any other questions that you guys might have.
The $8 million that you're talking about costing.
Wait, I'm sorry. Because this is actually live stream, Mr. McClurg, can you actually?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tim McClurg. The $8 million that you're talking about, I thought it was like $60 million. So, but the $8 million you're talking about, I assume that could be recouped from selling these buildings or this land. I mean, I heard the land's worth more than the buildings on it because of the frontage on Hamilton Road and things like that. But then somebody has to tear the buildings down. There's probably asbestos to worry about, all that stuff. But is the $8 million taking into consideration the payback from selling the property here?
No, so the conversation that we've had around this particular property, we've done an appraisal on this property. It's appraised for $4.8 million as of June. If the building and the site was raised, we would see a significant increase to the value of this particular piece of property. That growing of the pie, if you would, right, increasing the amount of financial resource that the city has available to it, are not included inside of the overall project estimate, right? So we're not going to take the $4.8 million as the appraisal and say, well, we've already reduced the budget of the project. No, we've not done that. This project is estimated to cost the city $61 million. The purchase of the building is $8.75 million, of which we'd ask this council take action tonight for the purchase of the building at $8.5 million. We have $300,000 in cash. But no, that the value of this particular property has not been realized towards this project at this particular point in time, but would be realized towards potentially this project, but other projects as well, depending on what the priority was at the time.
So it's $8 million to buy the building,
Yep.
And then it's 60 million to build additional building there and renovation?
It is, it's the net there, so it's 53 million to renovate and build the additional 31,000 square feet on the site.
And does the 31,000 need to be built right away?
The 31,000 square feet needs to be built, a portion of the 31,000 square feet needs to be built right away because primarily it's the niche space that the police department needs, such as the holding cells, evidence storage, sally ports, and things that are not conducive or can't be put into an office building readily.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious because building costs are going to go up. I mean, we've got $100 million to build a high school. We're already hearing that we're going to have trouble financing the high school with everything we want because the cost of everything is going up. Material, labor, you name it. And you're right, Intel's going to suck up all the labor. They're going to pay a premium to get workers. And I wondered if we really needed to build that other building right away or whether we could wait until economic conditions, favor us to build cheaper. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Madam Mayor, would you like to add something?
I did. I just wanted to add one other point of fact. I know Mr. Schultz identified that this would be paid through issue 12. Issue $12. Just as a reminder, issue 12 was passed in May of 2019. That was the additional 1% tax increase that came to income tax. Of that 1% additional tax, 75% of that goes for capital projects. So when issue 12 was being discussed, it was created for the purpose of addressing all of the deferred projects that the city had not been able to address when the income tax was 1.5%. Facilities and the identified issues that had been again, identified for the last 15 years, were specifically discussed as one of those deferred projects that would be covered by issue 12. So when we talk about issue 12 dollars paying for this project, we don't have $60 million sitting in a pot of cash right now. We would issue a note, then we would issue bonds that would be paid back over a period of 25 to 30 years. We've had financing discussions here in council chambers twice on what that would look like. The annual payment would be part of it would be a capital project every year that would be rolled into the budget that we would pay back along with other capital projects that we would continue to do. So just to try to help maybe explain that a little bit more. I know we all understand that, but for people who might be hearing this for the first time.
No, Mayor, actually, I think that's really germane to what's happening before us at the moment. Mr. Heisel, sorry, I keep doing that.
I have two questions. You talk about moving here, moving the police station, moving the senior citizen. My question is, and I haven't heard any study, is how come y'all couldn't stay here, move some of your office over in the police station? I can understand the police station wanting a bigger place, better place, sophisticated place. Move them down there. City Hall takes the old police station. The senior citizens stay where they're at because you do know that down there at Tech Drive, that's a flight path. You do know that, don't you? Airplanes. So I'm pretty sure that some of the seniors are not going to like being there and having them jets fly over the building like every 20 minutes. But my concern is that y'all did all this stuff talking about money when you can keep this building, take the old police station, keep the seniors where they're at, and the police station can get what they really need, and y'all just upgrade the police station.
Mr. Schultz, before you answer that,
Sure.
Mr. Heisel, can you please state what your second question is?
I'm sorry. Second question. That was it. It just,
Okay.
okay, I'm sorry.
No, thank you, sir. This is important.
I think I got it all. And if I didn't, Mr. Heisel, you let me know. So one of the things that we first did when we started discussing this project, when we discovered 825 Tech Center Drive as a potential option for this particular project, we went and we hired MCP, Mission Critical Partners, which is a public safety niche vendor that we've worked with in the past. And they came in and they gave us an estimate as to what it would cost for the 825 Tech Center project. The 825 Tech Center project, in total, for the purchase of the building, the renovation, and the expansion, is a $60.9 million project, as MCP came back and budgeted. The second thing that MCP did for us was to say, what would it cost to take that same project and build it someplace else? Okay, that project estimate was $99 million. Okay, that was to basically replicate the 825 Tech Center project on a different 8 acres of land located somewhere in the city of Gahanna, which the mayor indicated earlier doesn't really exist. The thing that we were able to extrapolate out of that is what would it cost just to build the needed police department building? The 80, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss the number, but 80,000-ish square feet of the new police department on about 5 acres of land. And that project came back with a $70 million cost estimate. So basically what we're telling, and what the whole conversation has always been, is that to do the 825 Tech Center project, where the police department gets a known tenant next door, if you would, a compatible tenant next door, as in City Hall, because they can't just be located next to anybody, you get that particular project in total for less money than you get a brand-new police department built on 5 acres of land, or even in a renovated space, because of the nature in which that structure needs built. That is a mission-critical facility, and it needs to withstand an EF5 tornado, which basically means that's the biggest part of the construction and renovation cost of this particular project, is the fact that it is a mission-critical facility that needs to meet a very high bar and a high standard as it relates to the renovation of the project. So when we looked at this, we looked at it and said it's kind of a no-brainer that a $70 million project to build chief what he requires in a police department, a police headquarters, versus a $61 million project to basically move this entire parcel down to 825 Tech Center Drive, is a project that is worth the city's effort in exploring and investigating, and that's ultimately why we end up here tonight. Another note, and one of the things that I actually forgot on one of my initial statement at the podium there is that 825 Tech Center Drive is located on the same bus line as City Hall, so access from a public transit standpoint, maybe not from a multimodal, a bicycle standpoint, but from a public transit standpoint, it's basically, I looked it up just yesterday, actually, it's about a 10-minute extra ride via bus down to the 825 Tech Center Drive bus stop. Did I get all of Mr. Heisel's questions?
You did well. I don't believe that we are going to be able to satiate everybody's questions, because in the long tenure that I've been on council, if there are 10 people, there were probably 100 people that have similar questions. So my question to you, Mr. Schultz, is where can people learn more about this, and also be cognizant of the fact that maybe not everybody has a computer or desires a computer? So where is it that they can actually get more information about this?
We can make print copies available of any of the reports that they so wish. But on our website, I apologize, I realize that was the one thing you told me not to mention necessarily.
No, it's good.
On our website is all of the materials. So we've given presentations on this particular subject dating all the way back to January. So the four public workshops, all of those presentations are available online. The presentations that we've given in this particular room, whether they're town halls, those videos are available on a YouTube channel. All of the 3 reports that we reference consistently, a 2006 report, a 2017 report, and a report that was started in 2018 and completed by this administration here, completed in 2021. All 3 of those reports are available on our website, and have been on our website since on or about July 20th. Along with a brief 7.5-minute video where the mayor, chief, others describe what this project is. You get a very good summary of the condition of not just the police department and what they deal with on a regular basis, but also the issues and challenges of this particular building here. While this chamber is wonderful, absolutely, I don't know that anybody would dispute that, but we have a significant inequitable distribution of employee to space. There are 8 people who work from that front door to basically this back area here, and there are 68 people who work inside of City Hall. There's an inequitable distribution of space inside of this building, and that comes through in some of the video footage that you would see inside of a brief 7.5-minute video that the mayor and others have starred in, if you would. Yes, sir.
Wait, Mr. McClure, You've had an opportunity. Thank you. This is a public hearing on this a very, very important subject, and we are really starting to get into the outside boundaries of how we've handled public hearings. But I want to get to it. Mr. Coble has been standing in the aisle, so will you please?
Just quickly, I was impressed with all the communication avenues that the mayor listed, everything except TikTok. But
I don't do TikTok. I got to
Are
learn how to
you
do that.
promoting TikTok?
I don't. Nah, but here's, I don't want to take up any more time on the frivolity, but when you have a tax issue on the ballot, we get mail. Everybody gets mail. Vote yes for issue such and such. Yeah, simple. Put it in the mailbox. We would get it. As to answering the question about what will happen to this real estate, we can answer that 18, 24 months down the road. That is unacceptable. For all I know, this will be a haunted house at Halloween in 18 months because we haven't I think citizens and taxpayers want to know, what are you going to do with this territory here? And now that we're floating bonds, we're paying interest. So the $60.9 million plus interest will have to be paid.
Thank you. Mr. McClure.
Thank you. Rebuttal? So interest on 60 million?
Absolutely. I'm not the finance guy, though. Or more appropriately, the finance lady who's, yes, there is interest on the $60.9 million.
But it's still low interest.
It has all been considered in our overall plan. It's considered and taken into effect on the 25 to 30-year note that we would be taking out at a future point in time. But the action before council right now is for the $8.5 million requested for the purchase of the building. As we went through design and construction, if that's the will of council and that's the direction in which we headed, we would go and we would do design and engineering of the renovation and expansion project. That would firm the budget even more. What happens to other factors, right? When we get into that construction window. And then at that particular point in time, we would be issuing bonds on that particular project, which we, at this particular point, do not anticipate it exceeding the 60.9 total, the 53 million, yes. And then, yes, interest does take in effect after that.
Just like a mortgage.
Just like
a mortgage.
Correct.
Yeah, because we don't have $60 million sitting around. Unless we wanted to name the building after Wexner or something like that.
Thank you. Again,
I just wanted to say one thing. Is it possible that the senior center could be used as showing some of the videos that are on YouTube, or I mean on Facebook and stuff like that, so that maybe the older people that don't have internet and stuff like that, they could go there and see it, or maybe a library, which, you know, is still being built, but the library that we have right now, that maybe we have handouts there. I mean, I would like to know where they would like to get those handouts and stuff like that, because it isn't feasible to mail out all the time every change.
And we can make those avenues available to anybody that calls our office, whether that's setting up a laptop in what we refer to as the fishbowl at the front side of this building, for folks to go in and watch the video, whichever video they want. I mean, we gave an hour and 55-minute actually presentation on July 20th about this project, the whole entire accoutrement of of everything. And so yeah, we can make those available.
thank you. Madam Mayor, do you have any final on the rebuttal?
I think we've covered almost everything that I've heard, and I don't want to risk opening another door to a conversation, but at the same time, that's what we're here for. I want to, again, thank everybody who has been here tonight and sharing your questions and your concerns. I'd also like, Mr. Schultz referenced that we had a town hall here on July 20th. This room was packed that evening with residents who came and asked questions and sought to learn more about the project too. So I know that we have had a lot of engagement with regard to what this project is about, how we got to where we are, and why we are here today. Ultimately, again, I'm going to go back to where we started from. This started because we have a problem that needs to be solved. The problem is the condition of the police headquarters, most notably right across the parking lot here. The challenge that we have is we do have an incredible opportunity at 825 Tech Center Drive. It's one that has come about because of reasons that aren't necessarily pleasant. Again, a global pandemic caused this building to be vacant. It's sitting here, the cost savings that this presents to us to be able to solve an immediate problem with the police headquarters and solve the longer term problems with City Hall and Senior Center, providing them with more programming space at what is ultimately a cost savings to us. I think we've already talked at length as to what exactly that means. The challenge that we have is that if we don't do this project, we still have an issue that needs to be solved and we don't have a solution for it. And the alternatives that we have looked at of building a new police headquarters, what would that look like, are far much more expensive than what this project is. So if not this, then what? The what to that question is a bigger burden on taxpayers down the road. So I hope that people understand that. This is not that we drove past a building and went, oh, that looks nice, we should go there. This was the result of months of evaluation and exploring options and trying to fit the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle together to find a solution to a problem in the most cost-effective way that we could to taxpayers. 825 Tech Center Drive solves the immediate problem for our police. It takes City Hall along with it. It gives our employees room to work. It gives us room to have community meetings where we can show videos and do things, and we don't have to be going to the golf course clubhouse to try to find room for a meeting, which is what we were trying to do earlier today because we have more than 15 people in a meeting. The opportunities that 825 Tech Center Drive presents us in terms of our ability to provide services to our residents is something that will positively impact this community. And it will take this issue that we have, police headquarters, City Hall, Senior Center, off the table and resolve this for us for the next 30 plus years. It makes sense. So I want to thank everybody for your time.
All right, I will close the hearing. Thank you really deeply for everybody actually participating in this. If you are still antsy and you're still looking for questions or you're looking for answers to your questions about this, please definitely don't hesitate to stop one of us or actually talk to the mayor, talk to staff. Go to gahanna.gov/facilities and learn more. It's really hard to put 9 months of work into a single Twitter 140-character little soundbite for you. So please go look at the plethora of work that actually was done.
Do you want to remind people we'll be voting later on the agenda?
Yes, we will be, there is an item on the agenda. Thank you, Councilwoman Bowers. Later in the agenda, item where we are actually voting on the purchase agreement for said 825 Tech Center Drive. So you may want to stick around for that.
We'll be responding to their comments.
Yeah. During discussion.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on to the rest of our agenda. Item E, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
Have a first by Mr. Snetzer.
Second.
Second by Councilman Weaver. Any discussion? Roll call, Jeremy, please.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda is published. Item F, ordinances for introduction and first reading. There are no legislative actions on these, but I'm going to read them for the record. Ordinance 51-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and the director of public service to enter into a contract with American Rock Salt Co. LLC for the road salt for the 2022-2023 winter season. Ordinance 53-2022, an ordinance amending Gahanna Codified Ordinance Chapter 521.06B for the construction, repair, and replacement of sidewalks, integral approaches, aprons, and related areas. Item G, ordinances for second reading and adoption. First ordinance, 46-2022, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to enter into an office and industrial incentive agreement with Columbus Aesthetic and Plastic Surgery for a period of 10 years. Do I have a motion to move forward with this ordinance?
Second.
Have a first by Councilman Angelou, a second by Councilman Snetzer. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Ms. Bowers?
I believe it was discussed at Committee of the Whole that we'd like to move forward with amending this ordinance such that we are substituting the incentive agreement with the red line version with the edits to items 3 and 4 as discussed. So I'm moving to amend the ordinance.
Have first to amend the incentive as stated. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Councilman Snetzer. Any discussion?
Yeah, just briefly, we had a lot of conversation, and I want to thank Director Strum on this, on this incentive. I think it's important to note that there was an agreement, certainly by CAPS as well, to make sure that their employees were being compensated adequately and at market rate, not just in their annual, or not just in their kind of direct pay, but also with benefits. So I'd like to thank the administration and Director Strum for making sure that that was included, as I thought that was important in offering this incentive. I just also wanted to mention that there are no additional incentives that go along with this project. There are no abatements or TIF incentives that go along with this project. So this is a single incentive that goes with this project. I'm excited because I think this is a great option to renovate and move forward with a business at the old Penzone Salon at Cherry Bottom. And I am excited to welcome this industry to Gahanna. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further discussion items on this amendment? Seeing none, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Okay, the amended ordinance passes. Thank you. Ordinance 47, 2022. Sorry?
Wasn't that just the amendment?
Oh, the amendment, okay. So any discussion on the ordinance itself? Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, Jeremy, please call the roll on the overall ordinance.
Angelou,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Thank you. Did not want to leave that hanging out there. Item ordinance 47-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement with FJF Ohio Gahanna LLC for the property located at 825 Tech Center Drive. Do I have a motion to adopt said ordinance?
So moved.
Have a first by Mr. Snetzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilman McGregor. Any discussion?
Do you want to go down the line?
I'll just go down. All right, Councilwoman McGregor, do you have any?
Pretty much everything's been said. I guess the one thing I would say that I think is probably the most important is, to me, was that we were looking to upgrade the police station, and that was going to cost about $71 million to buy land and build the building. When this opportunity presented itself, it wasn't what we intended to do. It's just like it was too good a deal to pass up, because we were going to move not only this building, but the senior center and the police station into an upgraded facility for less than what it would cost the police station, to build the police station alone. And to me, that was a value that I just, to me, it's not the order that we intended, maybe not the order, but not the timing we intended, but it was like, it was a deal that was presented to us, and it was too good to pass up, you know? And when you have that in your own life, you know, sometimes those opportunities come up, you just have to grab them, and this seems to be the time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Angelou, I'm sorry, you got brain fade for a second.
I'm so happy you did that, too. Actually, I think we've put all this through. We've talked about it numerous times. It is the right thing to do, because if we have to do it later, it's going to, we could find a deal like this, and it truly was. And we studied the council came at, how many times was it? 4 times for about 2 hours over at the senior center, talking about what we needed to do and what was the best. The parts of the things having to do with the taxes, I have to say this, that this can only be a positive for us to do. And indeed, I don't know what's going to happen to this facility. I've been in here since it was built in 1994. I was in it before it was redone from 1981. I feel like it's home. However, I think the home for the next 50 years is probably at the place that we're going to potentially get to.
Thank you. Councilwoman Padova.
Thank you. So the first thing that I did after being elected was meet with Chief Spence, and he gave me a tour of the police station, and I was very surprised by what I saw and how cramped it was, how crowded it was, and how desperately needed an upgrade was over there. So thank you, Chief Spence, for taking me through that. That was very good to see in person. There were a lot of pictures in the facilities meetings, all of the things that they've mentioned on the Gahanna.gov/facilities. I think those pictures are in there somewhere as well. But seeing it in person really opened my eyes and made it very clear that the police station was needed. As Councilwoman McGregor said, when this opportunity presented itself where we're able to get basically a buy one, get one deal with the City Hall and Senior Center and upgrade everything, it is just too good to pass up and still be a savings from building something new for just the police station. So thank you to everyone who came out this evening and spoke up. We appreciate it. I hear you on the communication, and we have certainly tried, and I appreciate the suggestions this evening regarding the use of the water bill and senior center, and I certainly let me know if there are other ways that any of you guys see things that would be a better way for us to communicate messages, such as these public hearings to our residents, because I would have liked to hear from even more people than what we did this evening, and especially the last 2 public hearings that we had. But in the end, I do agree with what Ms. Gochin said, that I do agree this project is wise, strategic, and forward-thinking, which is why I will be voting in favor.
Thank you. Councilman Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank everyone who has participated in any of the town halls, the public hearings, joining us this evening, or who have reached out to us directly via email or phone calls, stopping us at the grocery store, et cetera. Also want to thank the administration and staff, particularly Mr. Schultz, who has been the public face of this since the beginning, and done a great job fielding questions from the public and from council alike, as well as the many additional staff who've gotten us to this point. It's not a decision to be made lightly, and it's certainly not an easy decision. And I've heard some folks say, and I've phrased it this way too, if not this, then what? And I think that doesn't quite do justice to the solution presented by 825 Tech Center Drive. This is a good solution, maybe not the ideal solution that many have hoped for, but it is a good solution for challenges that have been facing the city for decades. Ideally, if we could go back in time 30, 40 years, we could have anticipated the growth that the city has realized, but hindsight, of course, is 20/20. At the end of the day, the current facilities are inadequate and have been inadequate for some time. As the city has grown, it's become clear that our dedicated staff and our officers are now impacted by the limitations imposed by our current facilities, and that has a direct impact on the services we can provide. In terms of cost, Director Burry, staff, and outside counsel have really done a great job making the financial case. I know Director Burry was taking questions from me even this morning as they popped up, so thank you, Director. While certainly it is a large undertaking, I believe it is achievable thanks to the generous support of residents for Issue 12. Upgrades to facilities and the city's infrastructure is exactly what part of Issue 12 was meant to do. Again, perhaps not the perfect solution, but this does present an affordable opportunity when there are really not any other affordable options available to us in the city. Lastly, I do hear folks on the communication and on accessibility, so I would challenge the administration to continue to proactively reach out to residents should the project move forward and work to promote accessibility, both as it is broadly understood, but as the term is a term of art as well. All that to say, I will be voting yes on the ordinance, and I look forward to what the future brings to our wonderful city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Snetzer.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Mr. Weaver, it's a challenge to go after you there. Nicely stated. An economist much wiser and smarter than me once said there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs, and you try to get the best trade-off you can get, and that's all you can hope for, end quote. I think that encapsulates the decision that's before us tonight, as it sets off a series of events that ultimately leads us towards arguably the largest capital project that the city's undertaken, but still a very necessary one. And Councilwoman Padova a few minutes ago had said that when she first came on board, Chief Spence provided a tour of that facility. I too had a tour of that facility now nearly a decade ago when I first came on board, and I only emphasize that, or I only underscore that to kind of emphasize that this has been a known problem for quite some time. It was known 8.5 years ago, and I'm sure it was known long before that as well. I can't imagine I was the first one to receive that tour, and certainly wasn't the last. With that being said, again, going back to this idea of there are no perfect solutions, but only trade-offs, there's been much discussion about location and those types of things. That is one, there was one issue I think came up very early on in our workshops. I wish there was a piece, 8-acre piece of land in the center of town that was affordable and would only cost, $50 or $60 million to pull this off. But the reality is there is not. And one of council's primary obligations is to spend public dollars as wise as we possibly can. And given the compelling economics that are behind this, that we can vacate the current premises, which allows for the repurposing of this property, which allows the city to conceptually lower the net cost of this project. And then we can do 3 city services for essentially the price of 1, as was discussed by Mr. Schultz. I think makes for a really strong case that this is something that the city ought to move forward with. And so I intend to support it, and I would encourage my colleagues to do so as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bowers.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the many members of the public who weighed in tonight and also who have been communicating with us over email and in other forums over the last couple months. The process that we heard tonight is not too far off from how I felt initially when this idea was presented, and I think it comes as no surprise that I'm happy to bring a critical eye and a dissenting perspective. My vote on this is not made lightly. I've taken a pause on some of the things that have been brought up tonight about changing the look and feel of our town. Yet, I'm tasked with considering the project as a whole, weighing various factors, including the safety of municipal employees, the growth of our city, and being fiscally responsible. We've heard tonight not just about our facilities, but about delivery of services. And I'm among you in saying that we ask our staff members to live up to extraordinarily high standards, to take a high level of care with everything from plowing snow and maintenance to processing permits or negotiating deals with developers, being stewards of our natural resources, contributing to the upbringing of our kids through recreation, and ensuring the safety of our residents and visitors in responding to crisis situations. If one thing came into dramatic relief for me over the pandemic and resulting workplace upheaval, it is that employees and members of an organization need to be supported. Ensuring team members here in Gahanna have a safe and effective place to do their jobs is a visceral way to ensure our support of them. A couple weeks ago, I attended the Columbus Metropolitan Club's meeting on housing strategy in Central Ohio. One of the panelists celebrated that the region is ahead of the curve, but that all of the surrounding communities need to be on board with sharing in regional population growth that is ahead of us. Part of that, of course, is developing housing policy, workforce housing, and diverse housing solutions for the influx of new residents, due in part to the Intel project less than 20 miles from here. But another part of that is making sure that municipal infrastructure can also support a larger population. I see these issues as intertwined and needing to be addressed holistically. This moves us forward in our ability to serve residents. Dr. Gochin said it well. This new leaf moves Gahanna forward, and I am confident that this strategic relocation will indirectly, at least, deliver job growth and economic prosperity to our residents. Finally, I want to share that I also hear the concerns about the location, and it was something that we discussed earlier in this process. It was important for me to hear from the administration, but also from users, that the bus transportation to the Central Park area is reliable. I hear the issue that Mr. Spack raised tonight about walkability and bikeability. I live in the South End in Rathburn Woods, and that's actually one of my favorite areas to ride my bike because it has a consistent multi-purpose path that connects southern neighborhoods to Central Park. And that bike path will be connected to the Big Walnut Trail once the connector is completed. So there will be bike connectivity all the way down to that area. But I absolutely hear you, and I absolutely hear you about the land use plan. I proudly served on the steering committee before I served on council, and I understand your point about the best practices and what we're trying to promote as a community. I also understand that sustainability means using existing infrastructure too. Overall, I'm grateful to all of those voices that have been part of the chorus and helping us understand and weigh in this important decision. And I'm grateful to be part of a historic vote that I think will serve our community for the next generation.
Thank you. I don't have anything prepared, but so what I want to do is I want to speak to some of the things that I heard, and actually with a little bit of historical reference. I started on council in 2012, 10 years ago, and my colleagues, you start to learn, and one of the first things you learn is like, well, what are the condition of the assets that we have currently? What are we walking into? And you start to understand the police department. You understand the inadequacies of the service engineering department. And you start to understand what the future is. And that was one of the things that I was helping bring forward. What is the future? In fact, in 2015, I helped chaperone an idea that we actually have a tax initiative before the people, and because some of us on council at that time recognized that we were disastrously behind the 8 ball in what we needed to do to actually get to a future point. Some of us recognized what the vision of what kind of Gahanna that we wanted to actually become. 2015, the tax initiative failed. I still got reelected. Go figure. So fast forward, we had again the tax initiative in 2018, and the first iteration was issue 29. We said the same things. In fact, we came with receipts. We came with the data, and again, it failed. Issue 12 then was basically essentially the same story, but we put the spin on it saying, look, we had to actually go to such great lengths and say, you're going to lose your parks. You're going to lose certain things, and then eventually we got the issue $12. And so I'm grateful for that. What my point is that we've been working for a long time on trying to make Gahanna something better, and make Gahanna stronger. I'm on my third mayor actually going through this. And actually, I am very grateful because we actually have a mayor that actually gets what we want to do with our future self. What kind of Gahanna do we want to actually become? So, and that, like I reiterated earlier, that we, there was lots of talk about, all these different studies and all these different things. Well, and I was sort of smiling because on one of the speaker slips, somebody said something that is actually near and dear my heart, and a lot of my colleagues would actually agree. Good government. That is something that I spoke of from way back in 2011 when I was running, and it's something that I continue to talk about is good government. What is the process? The public hearing tonight. We went way out of bounds, but I was just President direction, and because it was important that we actually get to hear what people's comments and questions are. But good governance actually behooved us actually to do these reports and do this analysis. And what you're hearing is a distillation of the last 9 months of work that the mayor and her staff, and there's too many for me to actually adequately name them all, and they probably don't want me to name some of them, just because they like to hide behind the scenes, and that's good. Public servants don't always have to be out in front. But good governance actually behooves us to make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely and that we're giving you not just the best bang for the buck, an old colloquialism, but we're actually building the Gahanna that you want. And I am sorry that you're actually coming in at a stage of this where you might be hearing it for the first time, or maybe you heard a whisper of it before. Give me some time and give me a beer, and I will tell you about all the long issues that we've had with communicating with residents over the 10 years that I've had communicating. And I know every one of my colleagues up here could actually tell you a similar story. But more to the point, give you the frustrations of making sure. How do we reach you? No one reads newspapers anymore. And you heard an elderly gentleman, Mr. Coble, actually talk about TikTok. Really? We're going to go there. The point is that at some point, good government actually relies on the people. You guys are our bosses. It relies on you to do your homework. And something that's called, you learned eons ago for some of us in high school, Civics 101. It's called civic engagement. You know what? If you're not up to date on what's going on at City Hall, then go read our minutes. Go ask a council person. Call the mayor. Call the administration. Demand to know what is happening at your local government, because these seats right here are actually some of the most powerful in our American democracy. We control your tax dollars, we can control the laws of the city of Gahanna, and we also control zoning, which we'll have an agenda later in October about that. So we are working hard, and we have information for you. And I know some of you are dancing around and you want to know and you demand, and good for you, demand it. Demand the mobility. In fact, we have an answer for that. Demand the transportation studies. Well, we actually have an answer for that. What we're trying to do is put the pieces and parts together to build the Gahanna that we all love. And it's coming. And this, to me, is a step in that right direction. Yes, it's outside of an area that I wanted. To be honest with you, I ran for mayor at one point, and I even talked about the fact that we should put City Hall or where our skateboard park is. It should be connected to their downtown. It should be part of the vitality that's going on. That's just not an economic reality. It's just not going to happen. But what the mayor and her staff have found is a good alternative. It's a vacant building, and it's got its stories. You already heard from her, and that we assume that this actually goes forward, we will then purchase this building and we will start building the security that we need for our public servants, the people that are working for you, a place for them to do the parks work, to do the engineering work, to do all the police work more adequately to a future Gahanna that we want. I will definitely be supporting this purchase agreement. Thank you. Any other discussion items? Jeremy, please call the roll.
Schnetzer.
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Padova.
Yes.
Renner.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 47, 2022 passes. Item 48, 2022. This is a long title, and you might want to hear this. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of notes in the amount of not to exceed $8.5 million in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, renovating, and improving municipal facilities, including constructing, renovating, and improving additional public safety facilities for police department for operations, furnishings, and equipping the same, improving the sites thereof, acquiring land and interest in land in connection therewith, and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and approving the related matters in connection with the issuance of notes, of the notes. Do I have a first to adopt said ordinance?
So moved.
Have a first by Councilwoman Bowers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilman Schnetzer. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just this item logically follows the previous item, but I did want to add one thing that I neglected to mention in my previous comments, and that's as it relates to this property. As public property, the Ohio Revised Code does have some limitations on what can be done for this property, and I'm sure our city attorney will be looking into that as the project moves forward, but we can't simply just give it away, and there are some restrictions on what can be done with it. So that's all, Mr. President.
Good point. Thank you. Any other discussion? Jeremy, please call a roll.
Bowers.
Yes.
Schnetzer.
Yes.
Renner.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Padova.
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Thank you. Item H, ordinances for introduction, waiver, and emergency adoption. We do have one, 54-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement, into an infrastructure construction and loan agreement with the Science One LLC related to the extension of Tech Center Drive in the Central Park area of the city of Gahanna, waiving second reading and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion to adopt said ordinance?
So moved.
Have a first by Councilman Schnetzer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilwoman Bowers. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Ms. Bowers.
Just wanted to thank Mr. Malarski and the legal team that came in and thoroughly explained it to us, and to Director Strum for then reducing it to English. So thank you. I was having a hard time following, so thank you.
And you're an attorney.
And I'm an attorney, yeah. I was way up here.
Good. Any other discussion? Jeremy, please call a roll.
Schnetzer?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Angelou?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes. Thank you. Item I, correspondence and actions. Mr. Clerk, do we have anything?
I just have one item. As council is aware, and I just wanted for public record to make note that the Planning Commission on their August 24th meeting had recommended for approval a zoning application for 13.96 plus or minus acres of property located at 5503 Morse Road. The current zoning, ER-1, proposed zoning multifamily residential district for a project called Morse Road 14. It has a timeline. Council has 90 days to study this rezoning application and make a decision on it. We've looked at a schedule for a public hearing on that matter, and that has been scheduled for, let me make sure I have it correct from the second one, October 17th, which would be the public hearing. We will still send notices out as we did for the Planning Commission's consideration to the contiguous property owners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any item from council for correspondence and actions? All right, seeing none. Item J, representatives, Community Improvement Corporation, our CIC. I have nothing new to report. We do have our next meeting on September 20th, Tuesday at 8 o'clock in the committee rooms. Mr. Weaver, you have anything to add?
Not at this time, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, MORPC, Ms. Angelou.
Thank you. Our next meeting is this Thursday, and the executive committee met last Thursday, and there are two proposed resolutions authorizing the executive director to enter into an administration of a contract for up to $175,000 with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency to support online distribution of existing 208 related information, update plans for Licking and Delaware counties, and host education community opportunities around wastewater infrastructure needs. That's the first one, and we have another one that's going to be on for this next Thursday is authorizing the executive director to participate in contracts awarded by the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program. And we had some updates on the Data Advisory Committee, as well as the Regional Policy Committee and Transportation Policy Committee, but we're going to have a great next time that we meet, because it's going to have good things happening.
Always do. Thank you. Mr. Weaver, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Regional Policy Roundtable met on August 16th. MORPC Executive Director William Murdoch provided an update. There are two upcoming Intel Planning Committee meetings that are set to occur in September and November. Work continues on Link Us despite CODA's decision to not move forward with the ballot initiative to fund parts of the program. MORPC continues to look at alternative funding mechanisms to ensure that the work continues to move forward. Excuse me. Received an update from MORPC's Diversity, Inclusion, and Engagement Officer, Rolanda Hampton, who provided an update by sharing the comprehensive work plan, which will guide key areas of MORPC initiatives with a focus on equity. COVID has changed and reshaped the workplace, and employers are becoming more creative in attracting talent, and the workforce diversity goal should reflect the diversity of residents. MORPC has been focusing its efforts on increasing diversity in sourcing, recruiting, and retaining diverse talent. The DE&I Committee has also been working with the National Association of Regional Councils with its own Diversity and Inclusion Working Group. We did receive a legislative update. As folks may be aware, President Biden recently signed into law the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. The CHIPS Act provides resources for entities like Intel to continue their development. The reconciliation bill recently signed into law provides tax credits for the consumer purchase and production of renewable energy, such as solar panels. Additionally, there are provisions included for home efficiency upgrades, electric vehicle charging networks, and energy rebates. MORPC will be releasing one-page resource documents of both laws to provide concise summaries. I'm sure my colleague, Ms. Angelou, or myself will be happy to share those as they become available. The Policy Working Group, chaired by Columbus City Council member Barroso de Padilla, has established 3 meetings beginning September 15th to discuss next year's policy agenda. I am also working on with the Policy Working Group, so I look forward to those. There was an update from the Central Ohio Defense Group. Senator Sherrod Brown had submitted the Rickenbacker Firing Range project as a member-directed funding request in the federal appropriations bill. However, the bill is not expected to pass by the September deadline, as Congress is likely to pass a continuing resolution. It's likely we will see this move forward and pass by the holidays, however. I think the last thing I will say here, sorry for my long-windedness, is that MORPC will be hosting Planning Together, Local Governments and Schools event to discuss the benefits of joint planning. And the next meeting of the Regional Policy Roundtable is November 15th. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Padova.
Thank you. Visit Gahanna worked with a bride and supplied some welcome bags for 50 guests coming to town next month for a wedding, which I did not know that was something that was available, but that is. You can go to Visit Gahanna for more information on how to set that up if you know someone getting married here in Gahanna. Mark your calendars for the Creekside Pumpkin Crawl. That will take place on Wednesday, October 26th from 5:30 to 7:30. So start thinking of your ideas to either carve, decorate, or paint your pumpkin, and you will have a chance to win prizes. The Spring-Summer Herbal Cocktail Trail is going to wrap up at the end of the month, and the Fall-Winter Trail will begin on October 1st. The Ohio Herb Center gift shop welcomed many new faces during the Supporting Gahanna Together Day, as well as the Creekside District Boutique Hop. They offered a discount as well as samples of herbal mocktails during both of those events.
Thank you. Representative for School Board, Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I attended the school board meeting last month, and in fact, it coincided with Chief Spence presenting to the school board regarding the SRO program. So thank you for working on that collaboration again, Chief Spence. There only is one other item I wanted to bring to your attention. The city and the school district are moving forward with an agreement to meet at least on a quarterly basis, not in addition to the construction meetings that have been going on more directly with the administration. But city leadership and school district leadership will also be meeting quarterly. Our first planned meeting is on October the 12th. To make sure everybody's on the same page with these important infrastructure projects that are moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Item K, official reports. Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Just a few things to mention. Thanks to all who participated in the Supporting Gahanna Together Day. That was held August 27th. There were projects all around the city, a lot of litter cleanup projects from our Parks and Recs department, cleaning the creek, to neighborhood litter cleanup projects. Businesses that participated, organizations that were involved. It continues to grow every year, and we look forward to another great event next year as well. Friday, September 16th. This whole Tuesday council meeting thing's throwing me off. Like, which day are we talking about? So a week from this Friday, we will have the dedication ceremony and unveiling of the city's very first ever historical marker. This is an historical marker that will commemorate the location of the Big Walnut Country Club, which is at Friendship Park, the city's oldest and most beloved park. The Big Walnut Country Club will help generate, well, the Big Walnut Country Club is a I'm getting ahead of myself, is a piece of our history here in the city that was not known very well until relatively recently. I think within the last certainly last decade. I remember I think Christy Evans started research at the request of the Gahanna Historical Society maybe about 10 years ago. But the Big Walnut Country Club, for those of you who don't know, was one of the first country clubs for the Black community in the nation. And it was located right here in Gahanna. And the historical marker will be placed to designate that location. And the marker will help generations to come to understand what that meant in the past and what it still means today for our entire community. We have a great array of speakers planned for that day who are going to share the story of the Big Walnut Country Club. We've met with several individuals who really could spend days telling stories about their memories and their experiences at the country club. They will be there that day to talk about what the country club meant to them and how it impacted their lives. So invite everyone to come. It's, again, next Friday at 4 o'clock at Friendship Park. We look forward to, it's open to the public for free. We invite everyone to come on down for that. Thank you, Council, for passing the development agreement, the incentive agreement tonight for CAPS, the Columbus Aesthetic and Plastic Surgery Group. That is one of 2 projects now that will be coming to Gahanna. The CAPS project is estimated to bring about $9.75 million of annual payroll over the next 10 to 15 years to the city of Gahanna. But just last week, we were waiting for the governor's office and Jobs Ohio to announce the press release announcing Ultimate Solutions, Inc., which is coming to Gahanna as well. Ultimate Solutions, Inc. is a life science industry organization. They are headquartered in Puerto Rico with offices right now in Louisville, Kentucky, one in Madrid, Spain, and soon to be one in Gahanna, Ohio. They will be taking over a location on Claycraft Road. They are a supplier to Amgen, which is locating in New Albany. So we're specifically looking at Gahanna. They came here, we met with them, we took them to dinner at Creekside. They loved our Gahanna community, loved the feeling of it, loved our Creekside area, loved the parks, the trails, and said this was a place where their employees that they're going to bring here could truly call home. That company will be bringing, is expected to bring about $3.675 million of annual payroll, 25 jobs and $147,000. So we look forward to welcoming them and making them feel at home permanently here in the city. If you haven't heard, Intel's groundbreaking is this Friday. It'll be Friday, September 9th. The president will be in town, so we do expect traffic impacts at various locations around the city. We will post and share that information as soon as it becomes available and we are able to do that. We'll probably late Thursday, early Friday is our anticipated time for being able to finalize that information and share that publicly. But obviously, there will be impacts certainly around the airport area. There usually are when the president is in town. And finally, once again, I want to thank everyone, not only for coming here tonight, but for those of you who have lasted the entire council meeting. Those chairs are not the most comfortable things to sit in for 2.5 hours now. But I really appreciated hearing everyone's input, whether it was regard to the facilities project or with regard to any other issue. I understand the concerns that were raised tonight regarding communication, and I will tell you that that is one of the most frustrating issues that we face daily. Our public information officer, Dan Perlman, is sitting there, and I'm sure he can tell you it's frustrating for us. We have 24 ways in which we strive to share information with the community, and it never seems to be enough. There's somebody who's always looking for a different way. We're open to ideas. I appreciated the suggestions about doing something at the library or having something at the senior center. We can certainly look to that. But we've incorporated we're always looking to incorporate new ways, from live streaming council meetings like this and live streaming town halls that you can watch in real time, or you can go back and watch them at your leisure. If you don't have anything else to do on a weekend and you want to catch up on what's happening in the city, sit down and watch back-to-back council meetings. It's better than binge watching Netflix, I can tell you. But again, we're always open to new ideas, so please, if you have new ideas, we're willing to have that conversation and figure out new ways to share information. I will say you continue to have my pledge to strive to share information with you, in whatever reasonable way that we can do that. But in the meantime, I'm going to challenge residents that, the city's in a relationship with its residents, and relationships are two-way streets. We're here to serve you, and you are our bosses, and we are here to do the best job that we can in the most fiscally responsible, good government way to do that. we're going to make information available to you, but at the same time, you have got to read it, and you've got to listen to it, and you've got to be engaged too, because that's what a relationship is. So I'm going to challenge our residents to be in a relationship with us. With regard to this evening's vote, I personally, and on behalf of our staff here at the city, would like to thank you, our council members. Thank you for participating in multiple workshops over the last 9 months. Thank you for asking challenging questions, for offering your input, your insights, your ideas as we work together to explore possible solutions that were not only workable for us as a community, but fiscally manageable and fiscally responsible for us. We have years and years of projects that need to be addressed. This was one of them. And I appreciate Councilman Weaver's comments and Councilman Schnetzler's comments that it's not a perfect solution. I don't know, I can tell you that in 2.5 years of sitting in this seat, you will never find a perfect solution that's going to make 36,000 people all happy at the same time. It's not the perfect solution, but it is the best solution. It makes sense, as I said earlier. And I want to commend you. It's scary. This is the biggest project we've had, certainly in recent history and perhaps ever. But the research has been done, the legwork has been done, and we will work through this together as we move forward in the next phase of what we need to do, and we will be open and communicative with our residents as we work through this, including our discussions on what can and cannot happen with the existing property. No sense in having those discussions until we know whether or not we're going to be needing to have those, but now that it looks like we'll be able to have those conversations, we'll start to begin that dialogue as well. But again, I just want to thank council members for your time, for your input, for your support with this, and we look forward to continuing to work with you as we now take this project to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you. There's 3 major issues I've spent a lot of time and effort on that have come to fruition today. And the first is the negotiating the purchase agreement for 825 Tech Center Drive. As I indicated to you, I read every word of that 54-page contract so that you didn't have to. And I'm so glad to see you guys accept that today. The second was the construction and loan agreement for Science One. As Councilwoman Bowers had indicated, there were many twists and turns and unexpected things that happened. And it's probably the only time I'll ever be able to say that there's no risk to the city in the resolution that we got to that. And I, again, would like to thank you for passing that one tonight, too. And finally, we you passed earlier the resolution and the MOA with the school construction contract. That took a lot of thinking outside the box to come up with something that would work for everybody. And today, they needed to move dirt. At 8 o'clock in the morning, they had their pre-construction meeting. And I don't know if they moved a shovelful or what, but they moved some dirt today, and they saved their tax-exempt status on their bonds. So that saved our residents millions of dollars. So all 3 of those things came through today, so it's a good day. That's all I have.
Nice. Thank you. All right, council comment, item L, Councilwoman Angelou.
Thank you. Friendship Park. This is really pretty exciting for my family because my husband was the first person to actually buy Friendship Park. And he was the first person that was the recreation parks, first person to do that. So I'm sure when I told him that there was going to be this, he said, well, we don't know about this. And I said, well, you know now, and I think you should go. Because I think it would be nice to have him be able to tell the story. We have many stories about this because it was a very strange thing to be doing in that particular time. So I'm proud of him. I'm proud of all that he has done. And I think we should be proud of this council as well tonight because we were able to do a lot of good things. It would be nice to say that the taxes are not going to the right spot. They are going to the right spot. I believe we're doing double the amount of roads than we ever have done before. So that in and of itself is a possible positive thing going forward. I think also that the people here, I want to thank you for being here. Those that disagree with us, we hope you understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I never dreamed that we would potentially be changing this particular building to another building. So it surprises me. At first, I was thinking as we were going through the 4 times we were going, oh, not another 2 hours, and oh gosh, what are we doing this for? And it is the right thing to do. So thank you, and I want to thank you for everything that you did, because you are quite a wonderful person, but also you are a very talented person. So thank you for doing that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman McGregor.
Just want to talk about the historic marker. I've driven by many throughout Ohio, and it's kind of exciting that Gahanna is going to have the first one ever historic marker here. And do want to just mention Christy Evans again. She really we had a matching grant from the Ohio Humanities Council, and it was probably in the mid-2000s. I'm not sure. I have to check that out. But she spent most of a year going down through archives and all kinds of records, and she figured out this Big Walnut Country Club and did the research on it. And we've lived here since 1977, and I'd never heard of this mention. So it really was digging out a part of our history that I don't think many people realize. So it's kind of exciting to have this historic marker commemorizing this event that occurred in Gahanna's past. So I hope most of you can come to the dedication of that marker on the 16th of September. Thank you.
Councilwoman Padova.
Thank you. I wanted to send a big thank you to everyone, our Parks Department and everyone in the administration that worked on supporting Gahanna Together Day. I know there are a lot of people out and about in the community doing a lot of different things and just supporting Gahanna Together. And also for putting together the Touch a Truck event that happened that day at Hanna Park. It was excellent seeing all the kids running around. There was one firefighter whose kids happened to be there, and he was sitting there saying, oh, you use this one for this, or you use this hose for this, and it was just very cute to see him, seeing his father and that community event and family friendly, everybody just having a good time. And the helicopter that came in, everybody just completely stopped what they were doing and watched this helicopter land. And my husband was like, I'm almost 40 years old, and I don't know if I've ever seen a helicopter just land right in front of me like this. So it was a very cool event, and I know there was a lot of people in the administration involved in putting that together and making that what it was. So thank you for doing all the things that you guys do that you don't get all the thank yous for.
Thank you. Councilman Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be brief, unlike my
That's not
usual
positive.
fashion.
No, really, that's not, I know that. Okay.
Echo a lot of the sentiments of my colleagues. I, again, want to thank everyone who is in attendance this evening or who has reached out. I also want to thank the mayor for her proclamation this evening, recognizing Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Unfortunately, cancer can strike your own family or your friends and neighbors. I never had the opportunity to meet my sister-in-law. Fortunately, science has come a long way since her passing, but so hopefully we can all work together to end childhood cancer and raise more awareness on the needs for further research. Lastly, I would like to mention that September is also Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and this week is National Suicide Prevention Week. This is a time to raise awareness of this often stigmatized and taboo topic. While I do think we've made great progress in recent years in breaking down some of these barriers and stigmas, we have a long way to go. mental health is the same as bodily health. Our country has gone through several difficult years on top of all of the day-to-day stressors of life. Please check in on your friends and loved ones, and please, if you're having thoughts of suicide or self-harm, reach out to someone. Lastly, the new National Suicide Prevention Hotline is up and can be reached at 988. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilman Snetzer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not a ton to add, just thanks to everyone that spoke today, whether it was the first portion, just the traditional speaker slips or the more regular speaker slips, and of course the public hearing. And thank you to Mr. President for overseeing a bit more of a free form version of that public hearing. I gathered a lot of information about just where the public, where their priorities lie, what they wanted to see. And I thought that was valuable. So thanks to everybody that came out, and thank you for facilitating.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bowers.
Thank you. I will also try to be brief because it's late. I wanted to thank, I want to just reference really quickly, we had a finance committee meeting back on August the 8th of this last month. It feels like a lifetime ago. And Director Burry put together a 31-page report which can be accessed through the Legistar, gahanna.legistar.com website. And I'd like to thank Council President Renner because he also took some additional time to walk me through some questions that I had outstanding on that. On page 28 of that document, there is a section regarding how issue $12 are divided among the Capital Improvement Fund, the Public Safety Fund, Public Service Fund, and the Parks and Rec Fund. So that additional 1% that the voters voted to approve through issue 12 is split then with the majority of it going to the Capital Improvement Fund. 0.75% of that 1% is allocated there. I had a resident ask if we were adequately funding enough of the other things that people voted for as part of issue 12. And I went back and I looked at this to see how did we present it to voters and how did we allocate these funds in that levy initiative. And it's clear to me that 75% of that additional 1% is intended for and has always been intended for capital improvement, with less than 10% of that going to the Parks and Rec Fund. So based on those numbers, to me it looks like we are continuing to budget and divide our assets, so divide our revenue accordingly to how we presented that to voters and in a way to be accountable and transparent to you. So I thought that, so thank you again to Council President Renner and to Director Burry for putting that out there. I also enjoyed participating in supporting Gahanna Get Together Day, and congratulations on closing out on a successful but challenging aquatic season, Director Farrell. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I guess I want to reiterate what many times that you heard already is thanking everybody that actually came and sat through everything. I mean what I said. Civic engagement is important. And even though at the end of the day you still disagree with me, that's fine. That's part of the American democratic process. So keep it going, keep your questions flowing, and please always engage with the city. Also wanted to reach out and thank, I participated in the Supporting Gahanna Together Day, and I want to publicly thank Jason and Colleen Rourke for putting together something really eventful on the west side. They divided up the streets to all the volunteers. I took on 4 and cleaned those up, and then at the end they had a picnic, they had face painting, they had, and thank you Mayor and Chief Spence for, we had one of the cars there in PD, so available for people. And then we actually had some community, some home businesses that participated in the event. It was just almost a really nice hometown feel for the West Side. So my hat's off to Jason and Colleen for doing that. Looking at my notes to make sure. The only other thing that I wanted to add is, we have construction events around our city, and you're probably going to see more. I had something personal related to one of the construction events at the library. My son rides his bike to school. My youngest son rides his bike to and fro to school. And one Tuesday, he happened to be passing by the construction site at the library. The fence that secures around the perimeter happened to act like a sail that day, and it caught his handlebars. The bike twisted and stopped. He kept moving. Yeah. So the good news is he was wearing his helmet. Thank goodness for that. But he did still suffer a concussion from the event. And it took 2 weeks for him to heal. The first week was pretty dramatic for a 16-year-old, but he got through it. And so my only real thing is out to the public and to the world, and I wish Brenda Kovacs was here, our bicycle lady who's always championing. But my goodness, we learned about stats from the doctor's office that how many teens are not wearing their bicycle helmets. Please, for the love of everything sacred in this universe, get these kids and get teens and everybody, even adults, wear your helmet. You don't know when something really disastrous is going to happen. The helmet saved his life. He's about ready to get back on a bicycle, and I'm going to take him and get him the best bicycle helmet that's available. But and be mindful of our construction zones, because this was a freak accident. Who knew what was going to happen? You know, I serve the public during the day. I serve the county, and we have multiple construction projects that are happening, and it's given me a renewed look at securing those sites and making sure that it's still pedestrian safe, it's still pedestrian friendly, and we got to be mindful of that. But on the other token, it is a construction site, so my word out to the public is not just wear your helmet when you're riding a bicycle or scooter or whatever, but also be mindful around construction sites. They can be freakish. That's all I have. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Done. Thank you.